Hey everybody, it's Tony Cottaspoti from GreatVocalMajority.com website and YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about, you guessed it, fake news. Now, quick definition. What is fake news? Well, obviously it's a news story that is not true. It's not really news. So, but there are shades of gray here, because what happens also, and is also reported as fake news, is when an actual news story is reported in a way that turns it into a false story. So, for example, there are at least 3, some people have said 4 stories lately that involve fake news. One was that the Trump administration is impeding the investigation into the Russian involvement in the election. Now, that turned out to be completely false, but the media that reported it never reported that a retraction of the story or a correction of any kind. So they just left it out there. Totally irresponsible. Second story was that it was reported that Rod Rosenstein threatened to quit his job that he was just appointed to 2 weeks ago if there wasn't a retraction that he was the cause of Trump's decision to fire Comey. Rod Rosenstein himself had to come out and make that and put that story in its proper perspective. He never threatened to quit. Has the media done anything to retract the story, correct the record? No. So they allow these stories to get floated. They are not true. They're based on anonymous sources much of the time. And when the truth comes out, they don't correct them. Probably the worst one, though, and the one I'm going to show you some stuff on today, is that Comey was fired because he was requesting more funds for the Russia investigation. You see, the meme that is trying to be propagated by the people in the mainstream media who really seem to have a fixation on Trump that is bizarre, is that there really is something to this Russia involvement, and that Trump is doing everything he can to stymie the investigation, because it's going to be learned that he had, he's basically a Russian agent and, that kind of thing. Of course, there's no evidence of this at all, but the media seems to really think that it's true, and they want it to be true. And so they want to believe that Comey asked for funds for the Russia investigation, and because he was asking for more money, he was summarily dismissed by Trump, and they used Rod Rosenstein's recommendation to dismiss him as a fig leaf to do what they wanted to do anyway. They probably did want to fire him anyway, but I mean, it doesn't mean that it was because of the Russian thing. In any event, let me start to show you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to run through some websites articles. Now, here's the New York Times. Now, if you understand the media news and the way news works in the media, everybody runs their news agenda, off of what the New York Times says. New York Times, in this article, said days before he was fired, James Comey asked the Justice Department for more prosecutors and other personnel to accelerate the Bureau's investigation of Russian interference in the presidential election. And they go on from here, okay? And that's the New York Times. Then the similar article appears in the Washington Post. And another article, similar, appears in the Los Angeles Times. And still another article appears in NBC News' website. And another article appears on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow's blog. And still more on ABC's website. And there were even more than this. It was in the Wall Street Journal. It was on The Hill. Every one of these news agencies with names that you recognize, like Jonathan Karl and Cecilia Vega, they all reported this. Now, I don't know if they reported it because the New York Times reported it or if they did their own independent reporting. It's probably a mix of both. But the story was false. How do we know the story was false? Well, Andrew McCabe, who's now the acting FBI director, said he actually testified that he doesn't need more funds for the Russian investigation. Now, I know some people are going to try to nitpick and say, well, that doesn't mean Comey didn't ask for more funds. Well, that's true. Honestly, that's true. It doesn't mean Comey didn't ask for more funds. But ask yourself this question. Why would Comey ask for more funds that he didn't need? You see, the problem here is James Comey didn't say this. The problem here is all of these news reports are based on anonymous sources that have made accusations that Comey asked for these funds. And they're intimating by saying this, that it happened just days before he was fired. They're trying to connect two completely unrelated things. They're saying Comey asked for this and that's why he got fired, because he must have been getting close. That's the other narrative that's trying to come out. He must have been getting close to something, and therefore that's why Trump had to fire him. We all know that what's that going to do? I mean, it's not Comey that's actually doing the investigating. It's the FBI. So there's no effect to the investigation if Comey's gone, except maybe that you don't have a political hack in there that's working like a double agent for the Democrats and the Republicans, depending on what day you're talking about, which is what Comey acted like. Let's be honest about that too. I mean, James Comey in July, when he made his famous press conference where he took no questions, but he made his effectively his indictment case against Hillary Clinton, and then said he wasn't going to recommend any indictments. He ticked off a lot of Republicans in July of last year, and then in October he decided that the case needed to be reopened with Hillary Clinton's emails, and then he essentially ticked off every Democrat. So that's like a double agent, right? I mean, so he does that. The election of Hillary Clinton goes down in flames, and both sides don't like him. But now Trump goes and fires the guy that nobody apparently likes, and all of a sudden he becomes a hero to the Democrats. I mean, this is so ridiculous. And what you have to, when you look at news stories like this, and they turn out not to be true, and I'm going to show you in a minute why we know it's not true. You're going to see that they never publish a retraction. They never correct the record. This didn't happen. If James Comey comes out and says it happened, okay, great. Then there's some credibility behind it. But Dianne Feinstein said that she was never approached for more funds from the FBI and James Comey. She's a Democrat. I mean, so something doesn't add up, but the media will not get off this because they discredited themselves so much. It's hard to imagine how they could get any worse at this. I mean, this is really bad. And this is a very good example of fake news. And that's why I wanted to show it to you. But where do you go for the truth? Believe it or not, I know a lot of people aren't going to like this. This is the website that you go to for the truth. The Rush Limbaugh Show. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Rush Limbaugh, and maybe you think he's a blowhard or he lies or whatever. You don't like him because you just don't like him. But Rush Limbaugh does do a service in this particular case for sure, because all he does is play the video like I'm going to do for you.
Understanding who at the Department of Justice is in charge of the investigation?
The Deputy Attorney General, who serves as Acting Attorney General for that investigation, he is in charge.
And have you had conversations with him about the investigation since you've been in this role?
Yes, ma'am.
And when Director Comey was fired, my understanding is he was not present in his office. He was actually in California. So my question is, who was in charge of securing his files and devices when that information came down that he had been fired?
That's our responsibility, ma'am.
And are you confident that his files and his devices have been secured in a way that we can maintain whatever information or evidence he has in connection with the investigation?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
It's been widely reported, and you've mentioned this, that Director Comey asked Rosenstein for additional resources. And I understand that you're saying that you don't believe that you need any additional resources?
For the Russia investigation, ma'am, I think we are adequately resourced. For the Russia investigation, ma'am, I think we are adequately resourced.
And will you commit to this committee that if you do need resources, that you will come to us, understanding that we would make every effort to get you what you need?
I absolutely will.
Has